Welcome all to our weekly group meditation session. Today I'm also live on Basis on Canada Facebook. Thanks everyone for joining the session. Previous session we were so fortunate to have Brahmashi Subhash Patri ji join our session and gave us a wonderful message. Very happy about it. And so usually as we discuss have the topic sharing for a few minutes as part of the session, and then we have half an hour group meditation, and then we will have the experience sharing. So previous session we started discussing about how our breath impacts our life, right? So how we breathe, there's a lot of impact based on how most of the times of the day our breath either flows from the left nostril or the right nostril, right? So it doesn't flow all the time with both the nostrils. So we also discussed about how the Surya Nadi and Chandra Nadi and how it functions, like various activities or that will happen very well when the Surya Nadi is functioning. There are certain specific activities which are meant to happen when the Chandra Nadi is functioning. Right, it's all very subtle science. We discussed a lot about all those aspects previous session, and there are the yogic science, like the yogis, like from the ancient period, they know how to control the breath, how to have different nadis activated so they can control the body temperature. Even, for example, even in Himalayas, they are able to. The yogis are able to, without wearing warm clothing, they're just able to have that, maintain that temperature, because just based on how the Chandra Nadi and Surya Nadi, they're able to switch between and how they function, right? So it is very interesting to know, and it's all the subtle science. So the universal life force that as it enters our body, the human body. So based on how it enters, like when it enters the body, it gives birth to the breath, right? The moment we are born, we take our first breath, and as we leave the body, as the prana leaves the body, the breath is automatically stops. It's just like it's a natural process. So as long as we have the universal force present within the body, the breath is activated, right? So it said that we have the Pancha Mahabhutas, like the 5 elements. The breath is, that Vayus is one of the 5 elements. So the first element is the earth, right? The Prithvi. The second one is the water. The third one is the Agni. And fourth one is the Vayu. And fifth one is the Akash, space. So in these 5 elements, breath, the Vayu is one of the elements. Vayu is a very generic term. So it is said that in this terrestrial sphere there are 49 types of Vayus, right? They are identified based on the way, like as the prana enters the body, the way it performs different activities. These Vayus are identified with different names, right? So out of these 49 types of Vayus, they say there are like 10 of the Vayus which are like very much responsible, which governs, which administers all our mental activities and also the physical activities. So, and out of these 10 activities, out of these 10 Vayus, again there are 5 Vayus are most important, very crucial. They're most important as per the yogic viewpoint, yogic perspective. So these 5 Vayus are, the first one, we call it as a Pancha Prana too, right? So in this 5 Vayus, the first one is the Prana Vayu, second one is the Apana Vayu, third one is Samana Vayu, fourth one is Udana Vayu, fifth one is Vyana Vayu. So it is Prana, Apana, Samana, Udana, Vyana. So these 5 are very important as per the yogic perspective and yogic viewpoint, which are recognized, which are responsible for, governs many of the activities within our body, within our system, right? So like out of we also discussed about different nadis, right? We have basically 172,000 nadis in our system. So out of these 172,000 nadis, wherever there are 2 or more nadis or combined together, joined together, that is where the energy circle is formed. Those are the chakras, we call it. So, and these are all part of the etheric body, as we discussed in one of the previous sessions. So, and right? Out of this, like there are six major chakras within the body which are they aligned to. So there are 14 most important nadis which are according to in this 172,000. So these 14 nadis are either very strong or weaker based on how much prana flows through them, right? So how much prana we are taking in, that's where like we see these 14 nadis either very strong or if they get weaker time to time, different channels, or how much the way the prana flows through these channels, these energy centers, right? So it is like we have like the ancient script, ancient text, like we call it, we have the Prana Gopana Upanishad. This talks about in detail about this Vayu and then Pancha Vayus, and this, like if you want to dig deeper, like there's so much in it, right? So that is as is like the prana as it enters the body, as per the Upanishad, they say that when it enters the world and it enters the human body, it forms into 5 different Vayus, which is Prana, Apana, Samana, Udana, Vyana Vayus. Right? The first one is the Prana Vayu. So Prana Vayu is the subtle Vayus, which is very important, which nourishes our life. Right? It is the life force which we talk about, the Prana Vayu, which is the upward movement. And usually it governs different functions of our respiratory system and our heart, right? So for the Pranavayu, they say that the seat of the Pranavayu is at the heart center. So that is where the Pranavayu seat is located, right? So there are different functions, like if you see the inhalation or whatever the activities which we talk about, right? Like even swallowing, right? Or different activities, or like the energy of the prana. So they govern all these functions. So it travels up to the navel, and then from there it circulates through entire body, even up to the toes. So the pranavayu is a very subtle vayu which nourishes the life. And if you see, right, like usually the normal breathing, when we take, they say that there are different types of breathing techniques for relaxation. Normally they say like 4 counts, like 4 counts inhalation and 4 counts exhalation is a normal relaxed breathing. So if you notice, like, right, when you observe, like when you're stressed out, or when you get angry, you see that you don't breathe enough. There are so many irregularities, how we take in, how we take, how much prana we take. There's so much so many differences, right? So that's why like it all impacts the systems. Like these are the systems that get impacted with the imbalance of the prana, how much we receive. So based on how much, whatever the prana, like if we receive it, right, that depends on our longevity. Our life will be longer. The more prana we take in, that it will be more stronger, right? So this is the first vayu, and then the second is the apana vayu. So apana vayu is the downward movement. It is just the opposite to the prana vayu, right? It flows downwards. So it is said that the seat of the apana vayu is at the rectum. So it governs the functions of our, all the downwards, the movement of the urinary tract, and then the kidneys, the colon, all these are governed by the apana vayu. So this is a vayu which actually eliminates whatever the food from our system, or the elimination process happens through the apana vayu. Right, there are different types of elimination happens, right? Defecation, urination, or ejaculation, or gestation. So different ways, everything, the waste is eliminated from the body, because if the elimination doesn't happen well, right, the body cannot function well. So it is very important part which we notice. And if you see there is any disorder, if there is any differences in the apana vayu flow, that is when you see the people feel very moody, very sluggish, right? They feel they lack motivation, they lack inspiration, and all this, like they have the mental blockages, the way they are not able to think or clearly, or they cannot absorb the information clearly. So all this are the disorder when the apana vayu is disorder, right? It dysfunctions. And this is actually a beautiful poem, sloka from Bhagavad Gita. I remember, like Prem used to tell both my boys when they were much younger, so just to recite this shloka before eating food. right? So aham vaishva naro bhutva prananam deham ashritaha. So prana pana samayuktaha pachananyam chaturvidam, right? It's a very wonderful sloka. So how we eat the food, how we cook food, it's entire different subject. It's all sciences, how we eat food impacts, right? So we were taught from the childhood to recite the sloka, and then so that helps basically the fire that ignites within us, right? The divine force that is active, alive in us. To have that balance between the upward vayu and the downward vayu, basically the prana vayu and the apana vayu, so that food can be digested well. All the four chaturvida food, right? Like the way we take four types of ways we absorb the food. So the way is like we chew the food, we drink the food, and we lick the food, and we swallow the food. All the four types of chaturvida food, the way we take the intake. So all should be digested well, right? So that is the importance of apana vayu, prana vayu, and samana vayu, like how in equal proportions, how it should happen. So it's so much described very beautifully in Bhagavad Gita as well. So this is about the elimination process for the apana vayu. So the third one is the samana vayu, right? The samana vayu said the seat of samana vayu is at the navel center. That is where it resides, and from there it governs all the functions, right? So for example, the samana vayu, it just flows from our heart to our navel. So that is where it governs the function. That is where it directs all the activities. For example, any of our pancreas or liver or our stomach, everything is regulated through the samana vayu. So that's why if you see like certain times where if you eat food, it just basically usually the samana vayu, whatever the food we intake, right, it separates the nutrients from the waste elements. So that if that process doesn't happen, then there are toxins, like the toxicity will improve or will increase. So it will create all the toxins within the body, and it does not provide enough energy because it cannot do that function. So there is imbalance in that function of the samana vayu. So it is right. It's very important. That's why you see like whenever there is disorders, right? It's the person that they may feel hungry, or they may feel want to eat the food, but since it cannot assimilate, it cannot absorb, it cannot separate the nutrients from that waste. So what happens? All the toxins will be inside, and the people, they feel bloated. That will impact their system. So all these gastric disorders, all this cause of samana vayu imbalance, right? So and this is about the samana vayu. And the fourth one is the udana vayu, right? Udana vayu, they say that it is at our throat. The seat is at our throat, udana vayu. So it basically kicks the air out of our lungs, right? It is the outward movement, and usually udana vayu is responsible for the shabda, like for our sound, right? So like it takes care of all those functions. Like if there is any imbalance of udana vayu, the person, they may have some speech disorders, or they may not have that coordination, or they may not be able to speak well, or because that they lack that coordination. So that all impacts with the function of the udana vayu, right? And the last one is the vyana vayu. So vyana vayu is there's no specific seat for the vyana vayu, because vyana is like its entire body, entire system. So it basically aligns all our pranic vehicles, right? That is where the alignment happens. That usually it supplies the energy to our blood and the senses, right? It governs all the functions. It's also the any kind of muscular activities and any kind of motion, the body motions, everything is governed by the vyana vayu, right? So these are the 5 Pancha Vayus at higher level. So there's so much, actually, if you want to dive deeper, there's so much to know how they govern, how we can have them control. There are different yogic practices, right? All the Hatha Yoga practices, they intend to have control on the specific Vayu, so they can have control on the nadis and how they function, just basically to have that higher energy. So different breath work is intended, different practices, or different exercises, or people keep doing that time to time. So this is a very subtle science about how the Pancha Vayus or Pancha Pranas, how they impact our system, right? Based on the imbalances or based on how strong they flow within our energy channels, within our nadis. So is there anybody first time joined today? So I think it's already close to 9:20. We will start our meditation, group meditation. I see Rupa. Is this your first time? So okay, sorry. That's wonderful to hear. So you're all familiar with the Anapanasati, the breath meditation, right? With okay. Thanks, Rupa. So we are doing the Anapanasati, the breath meditation, where we are just observing our simple natural breath. So Ana is in breath, Apana is out breath. We are observing the breath, just our natural breath. So there's no need to chant anything. There's no visualization. It's just like normal rhythm of breathing. So please, we just clasp your fingers into fingers, cross your legs, and close your eyes. So that gives us a very good stability, forms that energy circuit, so it gives us stability to do the meditation practice. So let's start our meditation. Please close your eyes if you want to make your room, dim your lights, or if you want to remove your glasses. And please sit comfortably.